We'll get started with some opening remarks by two excellent colleagues. Then we'll move into a presentation of the policy brief by one of the authors. We'll then have a panel discussion with some fantastic panelists, and then we'll move into that Q&A. We'll end with some key takeaways and closing remarks. We're very excited to see what the next 90 minutes hold here. So without further ado, I'll pass it over to my colleague Philippe Gaffichi, who is the acting deputy head of Paris 21. Over to you, Philippe.
Thank you so much, Mercedes. I will join you to welcome everyone who is on this call. And just to say that today's webinar will be on discussing the working paper on the road to statistical capacity, learning from the past, acting for the future. Very exciting. And for those who have been with us for the last 3 days, I wanted just to highlight that we have been actually through discussing the statistical landscape. On Tuesday, we were discussing how artificial intelligence can enhance the availability, timeliness, and quality of official statistics. And on Wednesday, we were looking at data use, how data use can actually support decision-making. Now, today is capacity development. And linking these three, it's obvious that we can't have artificial intelligence or use data if we don't have capacity. So capacity is actually key to achieve what we have been discussing. Now, looking back, we noticed that we have observed very, very good progress in terms of statistics capacity in low and middle income countries. And for example, if we look at the strategic planning part of it, more than 70% of low and middle income countries have developed and are implementing or have implemented their statistical strategy, which is a framework for capacity development for statistics. Through implementing this framework, many of these countries have actually revised or modernized their statistical legal frameworks. They have improved their coordination. They have improved also their data production in terms of scope, in terms of quality, but also in terms of data dissemination. We can also observe that this process has helped to mobilize political support to capacity development. And where we observed political support to capacity development for statistics, we have also observed that capacity development has increased in these countries. Yet, despite this very good progress, we can notice that there are a lot of gaps, being data gaps or capacity gaps, that should be addressed. And if I emphasize on capacity gaps, we can see that we have very less staffed in many countries, in these low and middle income countries. They have also limited skills when it comes to implement their programs. But I will also mention the issue of inappropriate or inadequate funding for statistics, where you realize that even though many countries have developed their strategies for the development statistics, they did not implement fully their programs or their strategies due to lack of funding. So with all this, I think it's very, very important that we notice that countries have the challenge actually to do more with less. Countries are facing very, very increased data demand from global policies like the SDGs, regional development agendas, but also their national strategy for development. And all these demands are not necessarily coming with capacity support. So it becomes very difficult for national statistical systems to be able to respond to this demand and remain relevant. Now, from the approach of Paris 21 capacity development, we have seen that it's very important, not only looking at capacity in terms of skills. Yes, it's very important, but we have to move from people, institutions, and systems. And if we build the capacity in these three levels, we assure sustainability of the results that are being produced. Now, this paper is very interesting, and please stay connected to find out the details. It has been actually built through the Paris experience, or 25 years of experience of Paris 21 working on capacity development in low and middle income countries. But it has focused mainly on leadership. How can leadership or leadership has influenced capacity in statistical systems. Second, on strategic planning, how strategic planning can strongly support the institutions, and also how engaging data users and data producers also build capacity for the producers, but also for the users, to make sure that what is produced is used for better policy decision making. I'm not going to tell you what is coming, because we have a very, very interesting presentation after this. And I think the findings will help us to understand more. These are the experience coming from many countries, and I'm sure we will learn much more through the presentation and the discussions from the countries. So with this, I would like to thank BMZ and GIZ, who have been very supportive, and your collaboration, Caroline, has been very important actually to achieve all these three discussion papers that we are launching now. And I would like to hand over the floor to Caroline for her introductory remarks. Thank you, and thank you so much.
Well, thank you so much for the intro, Philippe, and hello to everyone here in the audience. Thanks so much for coming. As already mentioned, this webinar is built on a cooperation between Paris 21 and the Data to Policy project, which I am heading, which is financed by the Data Lab of the German Federal Ministry for Economic Cooperation and Development, and is implemented by us, the GIZ, the German Development Agency. So, well, I will try to make it very short, very quick and brief here. Today's webinar highlights actually one of our key components of the Data to Policy program that we implement. It is all about understanding what makes efforts to strengthen statistical capacity effective and sustainable over time. And the paper developed by Paris 21 reflects on lessons from many years of country engagement, identifying the factors that help national statistical systems become more resilient and more responsive. So it encourages us to think critically about leadership, about planning and collaboration, and about how these elements can evolve to meet new data demands. As we look ahead now, the experiences shaped through the series can inform future cooperation, donor coordination, and support for evidence-based policymaking, the ultimate objective, actually, of our work that we do. So last but not least, I would like to thank once more Paris 21 and the entire team for their incredible work and also for hosting this webinar. Thank you so much for being great partners in the last 1.5 years. Thanks to the entire team. And of course, thank you to the entire audience today for being here and listening to what we have developed together. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Carolyn, for those very kind words. It's been a pleasure to be working with you as well throughout this process, and it's been very collaborative, and so we're looking forward to seeing how that can evolve as well. All right, now let's really get into the excitement, the meat of today's webinar. I'd like to invite my colleague, Karina Casares, to take the floor. Karina is a data policy analyst with us here at Paris 21 and one of the very smart and intelligent authors of this paper. So over to you, Karina.
Thank you so much, Mercedes. Let me attempt to share my screen so that you can see my presentation. And can you confirm if you can see it?
Looks great.
Excellent. Thank you so much, everyone, for being here in this last webinar of the 3 series that we have. And I'm going to briefly present to you today some of the highlights of this policy brief. And I would like to take 2 keywords from Philippe, who helped us to open this webinar, and also from Caroline from GIZ. And they both mentioned capacity development and sustained over time. So with that, I'll keep these 2 words in mind to then introduce this presentation. But before that, and for those of you who do not know Paris 21 is, sometimes we just assume everyone knows us, I just wanted to briefly mention that this policy brief, as has been highlighted in the beginning, reflects on the 25 years of work of Paris 21, so we have been there quite some time. And one of our core works of area has to do with capacity development for data and statistics, as you can see here. And we work with the Global South, with national statistics offices, mainly on supporting them to make or improve the processes to make data available for decision making. That's in a nutshell, and that's why we are here and we have this policy brief. Now, on the policy brief itself, we're talking about 25 years capacity development. So what have we learned in this journey? And what we found is that capacity development is rather a process, so something that has to be done on regular basis, but there are definitely critical elements that will help us to have capacity development sustained over time, as was mentioned in the beginning, the importance of having it over time. And we have seen that national statistical offices and national statistical systems have evolved over this period of time. They became, or they went from just producing census data, survey data, to now in a different role, coordinating with different stakeholders, having a more user-centric approach, dealing with other data users from the national statistical system, and also with new technologies. We saw that also in one of our webinars now with AI. So we have seen the role of National Statistics Office evolving over time and now embracing other different areas, dealing more with data users, bringing the value of the data they produce to the different stakeholder groups who are using this data for decision making. And building on that, what we identified is that there are 3 big foundations for statistical capacity that will be the cornerstone for statistical capacity to be there over time. And one has to do with leadership, as mentioned by Philippe at the beginning. Leadership by the National Statistics Office is crucial to bring or to raise awareness on the value of statistics to the different decision makers at the country level, to the high level, and to make them aware that what they do is useful for the other institutions' work as well. Strategic planning. Strategic planning, it's a powerful foundation. It can be materialized in the form of a tool that will help them to coordinate with different stakeholders. Think about a national statistics office that will have to see who produces what data and who needs what data, right? So it is sometimes not a so easy task to do. And through strategic planning, we have seen how different partners have managed to advance on that and coordinate not only or align different efforts and coordinate with different stakeholders, but also mobilize resources internally by showing what their priorities are and what needs to be done first in them according to their plans, and not only for the statistics office itself, but from the more broader perspective of the different ministries, who's producing what data, who's using what data, and so on, and who is doing some of the also statistical capacity trainings and align different efforts. And last but not least, and usually nowadays, one of the most important ones has to do with the user-producer engagement. If we produce data, but this data is not used, and we saw that also yesterday in our webinar, it is a waste of resources, right? So engaging with the data users, it is becoming more and more relevant, and it has been proved being a strong foundation for sustained capacity development over time, because that way, those who produce the data have a way to ensure that this data is actually meeting the demands of those who are using this data for different purposes, either policy making, reporting to different agendas, and so on. So enabling these spaces where these two communities come together. Sometimes they might speak very different languages, but we have seen that nowadays different partners are doing this more and more, and it has brought excellent results on helping to develop a more robust national statistical system. So now, when we talk about these three foundations, are maybe probably at a high level, but trying to unpack this, what you will find in the policy brief are different approaches on how these can be implemented or how this works more in practice. And the intention of this slide is not to overwhelm you with so many countries and different approaches here, but I just want you to take the message that these three big pillars or big foundations are breaking down into more operational aspects in the brief. And just to show you one example on strategic planning, for example, we have seen Senegal. Senegal has been working with its national strategy for the development of statistics to reflect the different emerging needs of their national statistical system, meaning that in 2019, their first strategy, it was one of the first strategies that included a gender approach because this was a priority in the country at that moment. And that helped to then improve production in this area. Then in 2023, they included climate change as one of the priority areas as part of in their plan. And that is also helping to bring visibility to these new areas where data is being more and more demand. And that way, helping them to identify new stakeholders or new data producers and align resources to make this a priority for the entire system and not just for one or two different ministries or agencies. And last but not least, the practical aspect of the policy brief. What you will find in there is practical recommendations on who from this ecosystem can do or what they can do to improve capacity development over time. For national statistical offices, we talk about leadership, advocacy in terms of bringing the value and or showing the value and visibility of why national statistical offices are relevant in the system, but also why the data they produce plays a crucial role for the decision-making people. Skills across all different levels. So building leadership, we have seen now more and more national statistical offices are having trainings on the middle managers, including their staff into different trainings to build their capacities and become strong advocates for statistics. This has been crucial. We need statisticians that are not only good at the technical part, but that can also advocate for the work that the office is doing. And those who are part of the national statistical system, they can also integrate statistics into sectoral plans and budgets. Some of them are producers of important areas that are now gaining more and more importance, for example, climate change. And they produce a lot of data. So taking this into consideration when they do their plans, having that in mind when they do the budgets is also relevant to have a stronger data ecosystem. It's good for them to have quality data, and that means that these data could also be reused for other different purposes, benefiting the entire system. And for data users, I will say invite data users to give a chance to official statistics office in data. Sometimes when we have trainings with different users and producers and we bring them together, and they will say, oh, we don't have data on this area or data is not available. But as soon as we start, visiting the website, looking at the different reports and the data sets, sometimes then we find the data. So give it a chance, get closer to your data producers, and I will say exploit the data that has been produced by the National Statistics Office and the different ministries. It is of great quality and can be useful for different purposes as well, not only policymaking. And last but not least, the development partners. Align support with national statistics plans. National statistics plans, as I said, they will give you crucial information on what the national priorities are, who is doing what, with whom you can coordinate, and this will enhance coordination not only within the national system, but also among the different partners. You can also see who is supporting what through this kind of approach, I will say. So this is just to say that we all play a part in this data ecosystem and we have a role. And working together, taking this into consideration is also helping us to bring visibility to the value of data and have stronger and more robust data ecosystems at the national level. Thank you so much. I think this is my last slide, and over to you, Mercedes.
Thank you so much, Karina. That was fantastic. I learned a lot reading the brief, but I continue to learn as you presented here. So thank you very much for going through that very succinctly and very easy to understand as well. As Karina mentioned in this presentation, the brief itself focuses on capacity development, but really identifies 3 key foundations for strengthening statistical capacity in country. So the first one being leadership, then strategic planning, and also the engagement between data producers and data users. As we get into this next step of the webinar here, we'll dive into a bit of a panel discussion, and we'll hear from 3 different panelists about how these foundations have been strengthened in their countries and how they continue to contribute to developing capacity for stronger and more sustainable statistical systems. For this panel, we have 2 rounds of questions. First, we'll hear specific examples from each of these countries on capacity development efforts that are currently being undertaken or have proven particularly successful. And then we'll have a round of quick takeaways to further inspire statistical capacity development. So without further ado, let's introduce our panelists here. We have first Dr. Abdou Diouf, the Director General from la Agence Nationale de la Statistique et de la Démographie, or ANSD in Senegal. We also have Paula Rodriguez, the Head of Environment Statistics Unit in la Oficina Nacional de Estadísticas of the Dominican Republic. And we also have joining with us today in a very early time zone, so thank you very much, Leslie Cruz, the Director of Data Dissemination at the Statistical Institute of Belize. So let's get started with Monsieur Directeur Général of Senegal, Monsieur Abdou Diouf. This paper highlights how the particularly importance of strengthening leadership skills within statistical offices for advocating for statistics and to ensure strong coordination across statistical systems. I hear that you've been part and that you've had the opportunity to take part in some of the Paris 21 high-level leadership training and are actually implementing that within ANSD as well, providing opportunities for middle managers to do similar trainings. I'm very curious, and I think we all are here today. If you could please share some experiences or some thoughts on how developing your own leadership skills has helped you as a statistical leader and also as Director General to set a vision for capacity development, and also what you hope to achieve through the upcoming training for middle managers in Senegal. So over to you for about 5 minutes. Thank you.
Merci beaucoup pour la prise de parole et pour l'invitation à Paris 21. C'est un plaisir d'être à cette activité de partage, d'échange et de discussion autour de la problématique de la formation en leadership et de voilà, j'ai un écho ici. J'avais un écho avec un retour que j'ai voulu éliminer. C'est le lieu pour moi de remercier Paris 21 et l'ensemble des structures qui l'accompagnent pour l'organisation de ces formations de renforcement de capacité en leadership pour les structures, les instituts nationaux de statistiques de nos pays. Voilà, il n'y a plus le retour, je pense. On a un petit retour en son de l'interprète. C'est parti. Voilà, donc je disais merci. Il y a le retour qui arrive, j'essaie de régler ça de notre côté. C'est bon, je pense. Voilà, je pense que c'est parfait maintenant. Donc, je disais que merci beaucoup à Paris 21 pour l'organisation de ces sessions de formation qui sont destinées aux responsables des instituts nationaux de statistiques en Afrique. J'ai eu l'opportunité et le privilège d'y prendre part au mois d'octobre 2024. Et ce fut l'occasion d'un partage, d'abord entre responsables d'instituts nationaux de statistiques avec des réalités qui peuvent être similaires, mais qui peuvent également aussi diverger. Pendant une semaine d'interagir et de pouvoir apprendre des différences qu'on a vis-à-vis des autres, mais aussi des similarités que nous avons et de pouvoir comprendre comment est-ce que certaines problématiques sont prises en charge. Et spécifiquement, la formation en leadership a été extrêmement enrichissante pour nous, surtout pour la position et la posture que nous occupons, quand bien même que peut-être on peut avoir certaines prédispositions, mais cette formation nous permet de structurer notre action, surtout autour des dimensions, le triptyque qui constitue le leadership, la direction, l'alignement et l'engagement. Et cela nous a été d'un apport très conséquent, surtout dans notre rôle de coordination du système statistique national. Parce qu'en tant que directeur général de l'Institut national de la statistique, on fait de la production statistique. Généralement, l'Institut a également une mission de synthèse de l'activité économique, mais l'activité économique pour laquelle la production statistique n'émane pas exclusivement de l'Institut de statistique. Nous pouvons avoir les services de l'agriculture, du ministère de l'Agriculture, les services du ministère des Finances ou bien d'autres entités qui constituent le système statistique national et qui font de la production. Mais c'est l'Institut national qui fait la synthèse de ces comptes. L'Institut national également réalise les productions des opérations d'envergure comme les recensements économiques comme également les recensements de la population. Mais l'Institut national de statistique a aussi pour mission d'appuyer les structures sectorielles qui sont dans le système statistique national et qui ont des missions de production également et de s'assurer de la qualité de cette production. Donc, cette formation autour du triptyque direction, alignement et engagement nous a permis de mieux recentrer notre leadership et de mieux affirmer le leadership de l'Institut national de la statistique. Au Sénégal, on l'appelle l'Agence nationale de la statistique et de la démographie. Et ce leadership a pu être mieux affirmé à travers les interactions avec les autres acteurs qui nous permettaient de définir un consensus au sein du groupe de production de statistiques sur les objectifs généraux qui sont définis dans la stratégie nationale de développement de la statistique. Mais la formation nous a permis de comprendre qu'il fallait assurer ce consensus, quand bien même que le processus a été très participatif. À l'issue de cette formation, on a senti le besoin de faire une tournée autour de ces structures du système statistique national, de continuer à interagir avec eux. Et, cette tournée a été l'occasion de mieux identifier les rôles des uns et des autres dans le développement de la statistique au niveau national et dans la mise en œuvre donc des actions de la stratégie. Mais également, ça nous a permis de discuter du travail qui était confié à chacun au sein du groupe constitué du système statistique national et également de comprendre les contraintes et les difficultés que pouvaient rencontrer ces acteurs du système statistique national, puisque peut-être le leadership de l'Agence nationale de la statistique et de la démographie fait que on a une voix qui porte davantage que les structures sectorielles qui peuvent avoir également des besoins de production. Et c'est le lieu aussi de les accompagner à trouver des ressources de financement et également aussi au-delà des considérations techniques et des appuis techniques qui peuvent être apportés par l'Institut national de statistique. Cette formation aussi nous a permis, surtout au niveau de l'engagement, de pouvoir interagir avec ces acteurs afin de renforcer l'engagement des uns et des autres parce que les structures qui ont moins de possibilités, moins de ressources, peuvent par moments se sentir un peu à la marge de ce qui se fait et ne pas participer pleinement alors que le système dans son ensemble doit évoluer et doit fournir une production de qualité. À titre juste d'illustration, Philippe, je pense, l'a affirmé tout à l'heure, comme mon prédécesseur également. Pour ce qui est de la stratégie nationale de développement de la statistique au Sénégal, on avait constaté que le maillon faible du système est porté sur la production de données climatiques liées au changement climatique et également à l'environnement. Et les interactions que nous avons pu avoir avec l'ensemble de ces acteurs en termes d'engagement nous ont permis d'avoir des ressources pour faire pour la première fois au Sénégal une enquête d'envergure nationale sur les risques environnementaux et la vulnérabilité des populations au changement climatique. Donc, ça a été d'un apport assez conséquent et c'est à l'issue de ça aussi que nous avons pu interagir avec Paris 21 et solliciter à ce que cette capacitation soit dupliquée à l'ensemble du leadership, quand bien même que c'est le directeur général et son staff immédiat qui interagissent avec beaucoup d'acteurs. Les équipes techniques également, au niveau technique, interagissent avec les autres entités du système statistique national. Et nous avons pensé qu'il était utile qu'ils soient capacités, qu'ils puissent disposer également de cette formation et en tirer les meilleurs profits pour se renforcer et renforcer la position de l'ensemble du système au niveau national. C'était les éléments que je voulais partager dans un premier temps et peut-être dans un second tour de parole, on pourra revenir davantage. Merci beaucoup.
Thank you very much, Mr. Diouf. That was very informative and comprehensive and really interesting to hear about the different experiences you've had. And it really sounds like it comes down to bringing various different types of people together who have different perspectives and figuring out where you can best align and continue to work together most proactively and productively. I heard a little mention about climate data as well, which I think leads us very nicely into who I'd like to invite next to take the floor. Paula Rodriguez from the Dominican Republic's National Statistical Office. Just moving over to you now. The paper that Karina presented and that we have now at Paris 21 highlights the strategic planning as key for responding to emerging data needs that continue to require more capacity from statistics producers. I'm curious, and I'd like to hear from you, if you can please share how the NSO in the Dominican Republic has used strategic data planning to address growing demands on issues, particularly climate change, both to track national impacts and also to meet global reporting commitments, such as the Paris Agreement, and how this is helping to build a stronger national statistical system in the Dominican Republic. So Paula, over to you for 5 minutes. Thank you.
Gracias, buenos días a todos y todas. Gracias por la invitación a este espacio y por el apoyo que nos has dado París 21 a la Oficina Nacional de Estadística de República Dominicana. Quiero iniciar mi respuesta mencionando un instrumento fundamental para nosotros que tenemos como ONE, que nos corresponde según el marco legal, que es el Plan Estadístico Nacional. Esto es una herramienta estadística que tiene como objetivo dar respuesta y mejorar a la producción, difusión y el uso de las estadísticas oficiales a nivel nacional a través de un enfoque sistemático e integrado, tomando en cuenta las interrelaciones existentes entre las instituciones productoras de información que integran lo que es el sistema estadístico nacional. Este rol que se le da a la ONE viene a través de la ley 1-12, que establece la Estrategia Nacional de Desarrollo, lo que es las líneas de políticas y las políticas públicas que deben ser tomadas en cuenta para generar un país idóneo de cara al 2030. En la estrategia se establece lo que es el plan y que a quién le corresponde. En nuestro caso, no corresponde como Oficina Nacional de Estadística. Entonces, en el plan nosotros hemos elaborado, identificado las operaciones estadísticas que se deben ejecutar, que deben de realizar las instituciones que componen el Sistema Estadístico Nacional para generar las mediciones de manera rigurosa, oportuna y con la periodicidad necesaria y con presentación de datos para el cumplimiento de lo que es estos instrumentos de demanda nacional. En este sentido, nosotros para cumplir lo que es la estrategia, tenemos a mediano plazo lo que es el plan nacional plurianual del sector público, que se establecen todas las políticas prioritarias que deben de las instituciones públicas producir tanto los bienes y servicios para responder. En las mismas se establecen indicadores en este plan y dentro del plan está la política nacional de sostenibilidad ambiental y cambio climático. Olvidé mencionar que en el plan de la estrategia, en la estrategia nacional, eh, además de que hay un eje específico de cambio climático, el cambio climático se establece como un eje transversal en todo lo que es la estrategia, por ende, se debe de priorizar en todas las acciones públicas de cara a que somos un pequeño estado insular, vulnerable ante los cambios climáticos y que no es lejano. Actualmente estamos en estado de emergencia por un posible huracán que ya está cercano al país. De hecho, hoy no es un día laborable por ese tema. Entonces, es una realidad a nivel país que vivimos día a día, por lo que está en todos nuestros planes de desarrollo y todo lo que se hace en términos de producción estadística se encamina estratégicamente a cumplir esos planes. En este sentido, en dichos planes mencionados, hay indicadores de distintas fuentes, tales como los Objetivos Nacionales de Desarrollo Sostenibles, los mismos que vienen de la Estrategia Nacional de Desarrollo, los de Marco de Sendai, también también se establecen como pautas los lineamientos de aquellos acuerdos que nosotros como país somos signatarios. Dentro de ellos está el Acuerdo de París. En este sentido, la ONE ha implementado una planificación estratégica como columna vertebral para responder a la creciente demanda de datos, sobre todo esto de cambio climático, y cumplir los objetivos internacionales, transformando esas lesiones en capacidades para el sistema estadístico nacional. Como punto clave, quiero destacar de esto la gobernanza y la coordinación interinstitucional de una forma estratégica. donde se establecen mesas de coordinación, de cual ONES tiene un rol coordinador, tanto de las mesas técnicas, que facilitan el flujo de datos entre las instituciones productoras y los usuarios también. Además de la gobernanza que facilita la generación de insumos para los informes nacionales y los compromisos. Dentro de ellos podemos mencionar la NDC y los informes bienales, los reportes de transparencia o BTR. De hecho, como ONE, tenemos un rol específico del control de calidad de los datos que van para el inventario de gases de efecto invernadero. Entonces, esto es una responsabilidad que nosotros cada 2 años tenemos que velar por cumplir, porque dichos datos son utilizados para el reporte de los BTR que van encaminados al reporte del Acuerdo de París. Con esto quiero terminar mi palabra, una vez más agradeciendo el espacio. Gracias.
Thank you very much, Paula. That was very interesting to hear about, and an even bigger thanks for taking the time to join us amidst what sounds like definitely a stressful day. And it just really goes to show the importance of, I think, the work that you're doing and the work that we're all trying to get accomplished today about of making sure that climate data is really core and central to strategic planning work as well. So again, thanks for being here despite the difficulties. So moving on to the third prong of this three-pronged approach that Karina presented as part of the policy brief. The final element of capacity development or final strategic approach is in terms of engaging both data users and data producers and making sure that there is cohesive engagement between these two groups. So this engagement is, of course, absolutely essential to promote data use and also to foster a culture of evidence-based decision-making in any national statistical system. And I'd like to invite now Leslie Cruz from the Statistical Institute of Belize to share a little bit about what the Institute has done or is doing to strengthen the engagement between these two groups. And also, can you share with us what capacities have been developed to enhance data use across the whole national statistical system in Belize? Over to you, Leslie.
Hi, thank you very much, Mercedes. Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, wherever you are. First, I would like to thank the Person One team for having me on the panel. It's a pleasure truly to be here sharing the Belize experience in strengthening data user-producer engagement. So let me begin by highlighting the core philosophy that drives Belize's approach, which is data must live in the ecosystem and not locked up away in silos. To that end, we have taken various actions over the past years that can pretty much be categorized under 3 main areas. That is to bring producers and users into closer dialogue, build capacity from both ends, both the users and producers, and also institutionalize the trust and demand of the data. So if we look at the first dimension where we increase this dialogue between users and producers, one of our big successes has been the establishment of our annual Data Users Conference, which composes of representatives from key government ministries, academia, civil society, and even the private sector, which in most cases, we as NSOs tend to leave out, but those are big players within the data ecosystem as well. So the Data Users Conference is part of our annual list of Caribbean Statistics Week activities, which just so happened to conclude last week, Friday. And it provides a platform where various actors in the data ecosystem come together and highlight major milestones that have been accomplished in statistics. In the opening, it was mentioned that during your 3-day sessions, you guys looked at the use of AI. It just so happens that at our last Data Users Conference last year, the focus was that the use of AI and big data for statistical purposes. However, this year, we focused on what new research has been going on in the realm of statistics with a special focus on climate change data. It was a a true pleasure to partner with Paris 21, and we successfully delivered a training on the use of climate change data for advocacy purposes. Also, one of our big highlights has been our newly established, passed, and approved national strategy for the development of statistics, where also we engage users and producers in joint consultations, focus groups, workshops, and validation meetings. We ensure that this document is not only a technical plan, but a shared roadmap with buy-in from ministries and data consumers as well. Now, from the dimension of capacity building on both sides, for data producers, we have offered training in areas like data visualization, the use of GIS systems, how do we compile metadata, how do we reach to certain metadata standards, and best practices in dissemination. Through our systems and development processing unit, pretty much our IT unit, we provide technical support to and develop internal dashboards and data pipelines and data quality checks for our NSS partners as well. For the data users side, which would be our policymakers, program unit, civil society, and academia, we encourage short trainings and workshops on how to interpret statistical outputs, how to craft indicators, design briefs, and integrate statistics into planning documents. Internally, we have enhanced our communication capacity as well by strengthening our data dissemination unit. We design user-friendly infographics, interactive web portals. We publish constantly on social media. We have our advanced release calendar, which from the ending of the year prior, we set dates of what will be published at specific dates. And that gives us a level of accountability to our data users. Now, when we look at how do we institutionalize the use and demand for data, these combined efforts have led to more demand, disaggregated, and timely data from ministries, program units, and local government. We now receive more formal requests from ministries that tailor data runs, and we have better able to respond because of the different various channels. The co-design process of the NSDS itself has raised awareness in the buy-in. Ministries view SIB, the institute here, as a coordinating hub rather than just one more actor in the system. The high level of engagement has helped us align our production agenda with national priorities, reduce duplication of efforts, and strengthen commitment to resourcing. So if we were to sum up everything, what we build is trust, reciprocity, and shared responsibility, not just a one-time training or report. And that sustained engagement is what strengthens our data uptake here. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Leslie. That was really informative as well. And I like the way that you've broken it down into inspiring me and creating closer dialogues, focusing on capacity building, and then, of course, this trust element, which I think really underpins when we're talking about ensuring that there's good dialogue. Trust is very, very necessary. So thank you for breaking that down and sharing your experience there. I'm starting to see some questions come through the chat as well as the Q&A box, which is great. I'd like to encourage more of those. So if you do have any questions you'd like to pose to our speakers, please don't hesitate, and also identify who those questions might be for. But before we jump into the audience Q&A, I just want to do a quick takeaway round, a quick fire question to each of the panelists. So going back to you, Monsieur Diouf, if you could tell us, based on the experiences that you shared on leadership trainings and also middle manager trainings that are coming up, what is one key takeaway or lesson that you've learned that has really helped advance statistical capacity development in Senegal? You have 2 minutes.
Merci. Merci pour cette question très pertinente. Cette formation a été particulièrement utile, comme je l'ai exprimé tout à l'heure. Déjà, elle nous permettait d'interagir et d'apprendre des expériences des autres pays également qui ont eu à y participer à travers des études de cas très concrets. Et c'est des situations d'apprentissage qui étaient partagées et qui permettait aux autres également d'apporter leur appui. Mais aussi la démarche pédagogique qui est adoptée dans le cadre de cette formation est très pertinente dans la mesure où c'est pas un cours magistral qui est administré, mais c'est plutôt des interactions avec les formateurs, des ateliers et des cas pratiques également qui sont mis en œuvre tout au long du processus. J'ai particulièrement aimé la séquence qui a porté sur la conduite du changement, puisque dans les instituts nationaux de statistique comme les nôtres, où nous avons des systèmes qui sont en performance continuellement, il est important de pouvoir faire de la rénovation. Des fois, c'est le cadre légal qu'il faut faire évoluer. Par moments, c'est les méthodologies avec l'introduction des nouvelles sources de données, notamment les données générées, les données massives, mais également de l'utilisation de l'intelligence artificielle. Donc, c'était très important pour nous pour pouvoir franchir ce cap, d'interagir sur des problématiques liées à la conduite du changement, le leadership orienté vers le changement et les trois composantes principales qui tournent autour de la communication, de la collaboration, mais également de l'engagement. Le partage qui a été fait a été très enrichissant pour nous et cela nous a permis aussi au retour, quand bien même qu'on avait l'idée de mettre en place un laboratoire d'innovation de données, mais de commencer d'ores et déjà à pouvoir l'implémenter et à pouvoir interagir avec les collaborateurs directs, les imprégner sur les principes et les process qu'il fallait utiliser pour pouvoir arriver donc à conduire ce changement et ces innovations qui sont nécessaires au développement de nos systèmes. Et c'est pourquoi aussi on a souhaité que ces collaborateurs puissent bénéficier de cette capacitation afin de renforcer leurs relations avec les principaux utilisateurs, en tout cas de mieux harmoniser ces relations-là et d'être encore, d'offrir un service, puisque nous considérons que la statistique publique offre un service aux usagers, d'offrir un service de bien meilleure qualité et également aussi d'être beaucoup plus à l'écoute sur les préoccupations et les besoins des utilisateurs afin de s'assurer que ce que nous produisons est réellement utilisé et correspond également à la demande et aux attentes des populations et de l'ensemble des acteurs qui interagissent avec nous. Merci beaucoup.
Thank you very much. Now moving over to Ms. Rodriguez, could you please answer the same question about takeaways or lessons learned that has really helped with statistical capacity development in the Dominican Republic?
Gracias. Mirando hacia atrás, una lección clave que entiendo que ha impulsado el desarrollo de la capacidad estadística para la ONE aquí a nivel nacional es el liderazgo que se ha desarrollado en los últimos años, el liderazgo estadístico. Y este se construye a través de la colaboración, articulación con las instituciones que conforman el sistema estadístico nacional. Y a su vez entiendo que esto contribuye a generar la confianza hacia las acciones que hace la institución. En nuestro caso, aprendimos que fortalecer lo que es el sistema estadístico nacional y en sus personas, en las personas que los integran, no depende únicamente de producir más datos o estadísticas, sino de la coordinación como tal entre los productores de datos y los usuarios, garantizando que la información responda a lo que es la necesidad y las prioridades que exigen lo que es las políticas públicas a nivel nacional. Esta visión ha permitido que incorporar nuevas fuentes de datos, sobre todo en el tema ambiental y de cambio climático, como los datos geoespaciales, la innovación digitales, de forma planificada. Actualmente somos un país vulnerable y que también hemos tenido muchos fenómenos emergentes en los últimos 5 años. Yo mencionaría que ha encaminado a que las políticas públicas se reorienten y se reenfoquen, y con esto lo que es la producción estadística para medir en lo que es el avance de las mismas áreas de política, fortaleciendo tanto la calidad como la utilidad de las estadísticas acorde a lo que es la prioridad nacional en estos mismos temas emergentes. Yo creo que también una gran lección ha sido el desarrollo de las capacidades técnicas, no solamente en la ONE, sino en las instituciones, el proceso técnico, el liderazgo, el compromiso, el aprendizaje continuo y el diálogo constante entre todas las partes. También ha sido sin duda un aprendizaje de todas las lecciones pasadas que hemos tenido y que nos ha ayudado a fortalecer el sistema estadístico nacional, que no solamente siempre se necesita infraestructura y recursos, eso siempre lo tendremos, la necesidad de, sino que también lo que hemos estado avanzando en una visión compartida entre todas las partes y el liderazgo y apropiación de los temas. También lo que es la documentación de procesos, los estándares, el avance en estándares estadísticos que hemos tenido, además de las buenas prácticas estadísticas, así como de integrar la innovación de los datos, como mencioné anteriormente, y las fuentes no tradicionales, sin perder de vista lo que es la calidad estadística y por ende la coordinación interinstitucional. Mirando hacia el futuro, entiendo que el desafío es actual de manera estratégica, invertir en la capacidad humana, que es el reto que cada día lo tenemos a mano, dado la rotación del personal. También la gobernanza de los datos y el mecanismo de cooperación internacional que nos permitan avanzar, implementar medidas para responder a la demanda de desarrollo sostenible y de cambio climático como de una evidencia, como evidencia robusta. Muchas gracias.
Thank you very much. Lots to think about there, especially from that strategic planning angle. Thank you. And so then moving on to Mr. Cruz one more time, could you please share with us a key takeaway or specific lesson that has really stood out to you when it comes to advancing statistical capacity development in Belize?
Takeaways, there are many, and to pick just one is quite difficult. But I think everything could be summed up with one thing in mind, which is ownership is built through participation. So from our experience, we see that the statistical system has become stronger only when users and producers see themselves as joint architects of the system, not just recipients or suppliers of data. That sense of co-ownership fostered through early, inclusive, iterative engagement yields, I would say, two very powerful dividends. It significantly increases the likelihood that data produced will be used and the users feel invested in them. And it ensures sustainability. When priorities shift and leadership changes, the institutional relationship, trust, and habits that we have built maintain that continuity that is so needed. So in Belize, that lesson was crystallized during our NSDS process when ministries felt that they had a voice in shaping the Institute's roadmap. They became champions in their own sectors. So we had provided specific focus on their sectors. And one of the highlights was the inclusion of an environment and climate change statistics section in our NSDS. they made commitments to it. They advocated for resources and even defended this strategy that was recently passed this year. And that for us has made the biggest difference.
Thank you. That's very succinct and good to know about really what really has stood out and actually made the most impact for SIB. So thank you very much there. Well, again, we've seen some great questions come through in response to these great interventions from our speakers here. We have about 25 minutes for the whole webinar, so we'll take about 15 or 20 minutes to do some Q&A based on what we've received here in the chat. So feel free to keep submitting any questions. But I'd like to actually just flip it back to you, Leslie, because we have a very targeted question that came through for you in response to the events that you mentioned that you've been hosting to really bring the different data producers and data users together. How have you managed to convince people to participate in these events, specifically for data users?
It has been through ongoing engagement. As I said, our this year's Data Users Conference just concluded on Friday, and we were reminiscing back to our first Data Users Conference, which was a percentage of the scale of what we have now. And it has all been through this ongoing engagement of what do you guys have to showcase in the biggest stage? What is important for you guys? I think that the first approach that we did was what we wanted to display. This time around, we are using what Karina had mentioned, that user-centric approach. Okay, so what they as users, what do they want to consume? And that is one of the biggest changing factors that I would say is the success of what we had last week, Friday, to what we had 4 or 5 years ago. So it's just having that user-centric approach and this ongoing engagement with data users and data producers as well.
That makes sense. And it sounds like it's just about continuing to do it and having that commitment to really keeping up with it. So that's great. Thank you. All right. Mr. Diouf, question for you. How can statistical offices also gain more visibility and demonstrate leadership in front of high-level policymakers?
Merci beaucoup pour cette question très pertinente qui met le doigt sur la position stratégique qu'ont ou devraient avoir les institutions nationales de statistique dans le suivi et l'élaboration des politiques publiques au niveau national. Pour ce qui est du cas spécifique du Sénégal en termes d'illustration, le leadership développé par l'Institut national de la statistique a permis à avoir une interaction avec le Parlement qui a porté d'abord sur la signature d'une convention pour aider le Parlement à renforcer son dispositif de suivi et évaluation qui existait déjà, mais qui n'était pas suffisamment opérationnel. Mais de nos interactions, d'abord, on a reçu par 2 fois de suite des commissions parlementaires qui ont séjourné d'abord dans un premier temps pour comprendre nos process, les méthodes de production, mieux comprendre également quels sont les principes qui guident nos actions et afin de s'assurer qu'ils pouvaient avoir suffisamment de confiance envers l'Institut national de la statistique, quand bien même que notre posture et l'envergure de la production aussi au niveau national pouvaient laisser entrevoir des raisons d'avoir confiance en l'Institut. Mais ils ont séjourné pendant toute une journée entière à travers des interactions. Ils ont pu développer donc cette confiance à l'endroit de l'Institut national de la statistique et nous avons pu les appuyer, les accompagner à mettre en place un guide d'évaluation de l'action du gouvernement puisque c'est eux qui votent les lois également. Et ça aussi nous a permis en perspective de la modification de la loi statistique que nous envisageons d'ici l'année à venir, le document a été d'ores et déjà rédigé, de les imprégner des principales évolutions que nous souhaitons, qui portent sur l'utilisation de l'intelligence artificielle et des nouvelles technologies mais également sur la prise en charge de certaines problématiques, la nécessité de rendre régulier et obligatoire certaines opérations comme le recensement avec des périodicités clairement définies dans la loi, telles que le recensement général de la population et de l'habitat, tel que le recensement économique, mais tel que également le changement d'année de base des comptes nationaux, mais aussi les problématiques qui sont relatives au genre et la nécessité de la désagrégation des statistiques afin qu'elles soient sexo-spécifiques. Donc, ces interactions sont utiles, mais elles ont pu être facilitées par un leadership déjà existant et qui a été conforté à travers les interactions que nous avons avec le Parlement et avec également certaines autorités qui, dans le cadre de besoins de statistiques pour le suivi ou bien l'élaboration de politiques, nous confient des études ou des enquêtes à mener. Merci. Je pense que j'ai pu répondre à quelques éléments de la question.
Yes, you did. I think what you said about really leading with good quality and trust, so leading by example, is really demonstrative of how to effectively communicate and then also demonstrate that leadership that the National Statistical Office has and to be a data steward. So that's all very important. Thank you very much, Abdu. All right, for Paula from Dominican Republic, one question that came in that I think is quite pertinent for you as you've mentioned the SDGs and various different global frameworks. But in your view, how can vital statistics in the realm of civil registration and vital statistics be better integrated into the national statistical system, specifically for planning, for budgeting, and also monitoring of the SDGs?
Gracias. Voy a responder con un ejemplo de un proyecto que nosotros actualmente tenemos en la Oficina Nacional de Estadísticas, justamente de las estadísticas vitales, de nacimiento, de funciones, a través de apoyo de AECID, que es de cooperación española. Nosotros usamos métodos de Big Data, integrando diversas bases de datos que actualmente estaban en formulario en papel. Entonces, con la modernización del Sistema Estadístico Nacional, las instituciones productoras iniciaron con lo que es su registro de una forma ya de manera digital, creando bases de datos. En ese sentido, a través de la integración de justamente 4 bases de datos con el proyecto, nosotros pudimos normalizar las 4. Fue un trabajo de 2 años, bastante complejo, y poder cumplir con, además del proyecto, tener una base de datos consolidada, eliminando los sesgos y la información faltante y uniendo dichas bases de datos. Lo importante de esto es que con este ejercicio se pueden responder los indicadores que tenemos, por ejemplo, de los ODS, que como país debemos de responder, sobre todo del ODS 3 de salud y mortalidad. Entonces, con esa base de datos se pueden extraer indicadores. Está ya, de hecho, un informe publicado sobre los hallazgos que nosotros tuvimos como ONE de dicho ejercicio. Entonces, entiendo que a grandes rasgos, lo que contribuye a responder los indicadores ODS y esta línea de políticas tiene que ver mucho con 2 cosas, 2 pilares fundamentales, que es el fortalecimiento de las capacidades técnicas, porque sin esto no se puede lograr nada, y sobre todo con el apoyo de la cooperación. Y lo otro es la articulación robusta que tenemos que tener tanto ONE con las instituciones del Sistema Estadístico Nacional, que son las productoras de datos, sobre todo de registros administrativos, porque como ONE actualmente tenemos operaciones estadísticas, grandes operaciones estadísticas como son los censos y la encuesta de hogares. Sin embargo, la producción de estadísticas vitales provienen de lo que son los registros administrativos. Entonces hay que aprovechar dichos registros y para esto es un trabajo de la mano con las instituciones productoras. Gracias.
Thank you very much, Paula, and really illustrative of that example there. We've received one question through the chat as well that I think would be interesting to hear from any of our panelists here who would like to chime in. So not in any or to anyone in specific, but also to all of you in specific. The question reads, in light of countries with limited resources and well-trained staff, coupled with responsibilities for producing quality data and services, what lessons have you learned to overcome these challenges and to fulfill your mandate? So for anyone who would like to answer that, feel free to just raise your hand. If no takers, we also have another question that perhaps I can put out there and see if anyone wants to answer that. I think this one might be directed more to DG Diouf as well, in terms of the capacity for NSOs to mobilize domestic resources for statistics. If you can share any challenges and opportunities where leadership in specific can support in domestic resource mobilization.
Oui, merci. Merci beaucoup. Donc, effectivement, c'est le leadership qui guide un peu la confiance des autorités, mais aussi des bailleurs qui peuvent accompagner, puisque tout investissement, surtout dans ce contexte international que nous vivons, les ressources sont devenues rares et donc tout franc, ou bien toute ressource investie doit avoir un impact. Et donc, il est important lorsque on a cette capacité à dégager des ressources aussi, de pouvoir les investir et de pouvoir fournir des résultats qui puissent avoir un réel impact sur les conditions de vie des populations ou bien sur l'exécution des politiques qui sont mises en œuvre par l'ensemble des acteurs qui peuvent avoir besoin des données. Et donc, c'est un cercle vertueux, je dirais. Le leadership permet d'avoir une plus grande confiance et d'avoir plus de ressources et de développer davantage. Également de la production. Et ce développement de production aussi renforce le leadership et renforce la confiance et également la production statistique. C'est pourquoi le leadership est une composante essentielle pour les instituts nationaux de statistiques, puisque ça permet d'avoir une base de départ, une base de lancement, facilitant la confiance de l'ensemble des acteurs et facilitant également les échanges et les discussions qu'on peut avoir avec les différents bailleurs, qu'ils soient au niveau de l'État, puisque généralement, principalement, la production statistique est également financée par l'État, mais aussi au niveau des autres bailleurs qui peuvent avoir un intérêt pour des sujets ou des problématiques pour lesquelles l'Institut national de statistique peut apporter son soutien, son appui. Mais pour ce faire, il faut que l'Institut également soit suffisamment performant et puisse à chaque fois que solliciter fournir de la production de qualité et à temps pour pouvoir ressortir les évidences qui guident, comme je le dis, donc l'action de tout un chacun. Le leadership est l'élément fondamental. C'est pourquoi aussi le renforcement de capacités pour les acteurs des systèmes statistiques nationaux en termes de leadership est fondamental, puisque comme on le dit assez souvent, c'est le savoir qui est une des composantes essentielles de toutes les actions que nous faisons et que nous menons. Et le savoir sur le leadership est essentiel et fondamental pour nous aider et pour nous guider également à renforcer davantage et à hisser nos instituts et l'ensemble des systèmes qui vont avec à des niveaux qui soient les plus corrects et possibles et qui puissent permettre de répondre à l'ensemble des besoins de l'ensemble des utilisateurs. Merci.
Thank you very much. Perhaps either of Leslie or Paula, if you want to come in on that. I know perhaps Leslie, do you have any thoughts on the topic of domestic resource mobilization from your perspective?
Yes, thanks, Mercedes. I would like to chime in on that first question on how do we cope with the various challenges, both human and financial resources? It's a very relevant question, especially for a country like Belize, so small in size, and definitely the resources are very limited as well. But one of the lessons we've learned is that partnership and collaboration is a powerful multiplier of capacities. We realize that we do not need to do everything alone. By building strong relationships across the NSS, we've been able to leverage expertise, leverage various infrastructure, data to compensate for our limited human and financial resources. For instance, in many of our sectoral statistics, rather than duplicating efforts, we now work directly with line ministries to improve the quality of administrative data at the source. That does not only reduce the cost, but also enhances the timeliness and relevance of our statistical outputs. Perhaps most importantly, we've learned that a clear strategic vision, such as what we have outlined in our new NSDS, helps to ensure that every investment and partnership contributions contributes to a long-term capacity development rather than one-off outputs. So in short, I would say it's to strengthen that collaboration, strategic prioritization. We know that from stats offices, we tend to think that everything is a priority. So everything has that priority one level. But how do we strategically look at what is our mandate? So that is what has allowed us to continue producing high quality, reliable data to meet our mandate as the National Stats Office in Belize. Thank you.
Very much, Leslie. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense in terms of, really prioritizing based on what the mandate is and making sure that it aligns with your strategic orientations and really determining what is the most important, not just the most urgent. So thank you very much there. And
yeah, that would lead to the next question that was placed there, that what frameworks and tools NSOs align their statistical priorities. It's again, with the development of this new NSDS, we brought all of the key players together and we looked at what are their reporting mandates, what are the frameworks that they need to follow as well. And with us also, it was such an opportune time. We were looking at our new institutional strategic plan. The Belizean government has recently passed their new medium-term development strategy as well. So there were all of these new strategic plans that were just being put out in place that we need to look at those. We cannot develop these strategic plans, like I said, in silos. It has to be in conjunction with the various stakeholders to see what are their priorities, what is expected from them in their respective workspaces.
Absolutely. Thank you. And perhaps I can just pose the same question to Paula in terms of the frameworks or tools that have been particularly helpful for aligning statistical priorities with national development goals or the UN SDGs as well.
Gracias. Yo entiendo que somos un ejemplo como país, dado que a nivel de marcos estratégicos están todos alineados, sobre todo con los instrumentos internacionales. Nosotros, como mencioné al inicio, tenemos nuestra Estrategia Nacional de Desarrollo que establece todas las políticas al 2030 que debe de ser prioridad país. Dentro de ella está cambio climático, género, derechos humanos, las TICs, entre otras. Entonces, todas las acciones públicas y todos los marcos públicos, como los planes estratégicos institucionales, el Plan Estadístico Nacional, deben estar orientados y enfocados a lo que es el cumplimiento de esta estrategia. Y dentro de los mismos marcos están las áreas de política y por defectos sus indicadores que se deben de medir para ver el estado y la movilidad de las acciones. Entonces ahí interviene lo que es ONE. En este sentido, esos marcos nos han orientado a velar porque toda la producción estadística esté enfocada a su cumplimiento. Además de que están orientados porque, por ejemplo, en los planes plurianuales, que es a corto plazo, se incluyen los indicadores del marco de Sendai. En el caso de la política de cambio climático, se incluye todos los indicadores que tienen que ver con Sendai, con cambio climático, también con los indicadores o los datos que se producen a través del Inventario Nacional de Gases de Efecto Invernadero y lo que se van a utilizar para el reporte del Acuerdo de París y los BTR. Entonces, entiendo que a nivel de marco, aunque estamos en un proceso de actualización, sobre todo del Plan Estadístico Nacional y del Plan Plurianual del Sector Público, y también en el caso de cambio climático de las contribuciones nacionalmente determinadas, están todas al mismo tiempo en proceso de actualización y entiendo de que nosotros sí tenemos como las pautas y los lineamientos a nivel de marco bien establecido, que es solamente actualizado conforme a los fenómenos emergentes y poderlo cumplir en términos de producción estadística. Gracias.
Thank you very much. We're just about at time, but I just wanted to offer, in case, Abdu, if you want to chime in on this in terms of frameworks or tools for alignment. Otherwise, no problem. It's not required to answer. So I think that's great. This has been super informative and a fantastic discussion between everyone, and also to hear those questions come in from everyone who we have on the webinar today. So thank you very much. I'd like to pass it over again to my colleague Philippe to provide some special takeaways or closing remarks. If you're still on the line, Philippe, over to you.
Yeah, thank you so much, Mercedes. I'm trying to put on my video. Okay, I think so. Yeah, thank you so much for the wonderful and very exciting discussions and contributions and discussions throughout the webinar. Actually, this shows really how capacity development for statistics is very, very important. And when I look at Karina's presentation and the recommended call for actions to support the statistics development, actually that has been well discussed through the intervention from our colleagues, and also the recommendations through what the paper has actually found out. If you go through the three pillars that the paper described, the leadership, for example, I will just quote Diouf. Leadership through direction, alignment, commitment. And this is really very key to have the strategic planning well aligned with data priorities and data supply. It is also very important to engage users and producers to ensure that capacity is provided both for users in terms of data literacy and also for producers to ensure that what is produced in terms of data is really responding to the priorities in terms of policy. So these three layers of statistical capacity are very, very well connected. And I think is our colleague from Belize who was emphasizing on participation, collaboration, partnership, ownership. This is something that is really important, and capacity development actually is built through that process. We shouldn't be looking at skills in terms of very specific statistical skills only, but these kind of participations, partnership, collaboration, inclusiveness is part of capacity development to make sure that the statistics system is well connected and can respond to the increasing data demand. So I think it is really important to continue discussing this. It's not the end, it's just highlighting what is important to continue discussing on. And we will continue to work on this in collaboration with partner countries and other development partners to ensure that we are increasing the capacity of statistical systems as we go ahead. So once again, I would like to thank you so much for your interventions, your presentations, and your participation, all of you. And again, I would like to close by thanking once again BMZ and GIZ for their contribution, their collaboration to make this happen. And for the Paris 21 team that has worked on these three papers, I would like to thank you so much as well. And we will continue on this space to be able to contribute on capacity development in statistics. So thank you so much, and over to you, Mercedes. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Philippe. And just echoing Philippe's words, thank you everybody for taking the time to attend today. For those of you who have been part of the previous webinars yesterday, the day before, we very much appreciate it as well. It's been truly fantastic to hear the feedback. So this is the last of our 3 webinars. They are being recorded, or they were recorded, and they will be shared publicly. So if you would like to find out about those, stay tuned to the Paris 21 social media channels and our website. It's also where you can find these 3 policy briefs. We'd love to hear your feedback on them as you do read them, and we love to answer questions, so don't hesitate to reach out. Big thanks to Karina for her excellent presentation, as well as our 3 panelists here and all of the team at Paris 21 for the logistical support. And of course, big thank you to our interpretation team at Go Bilingual as well.